Anyway, I don't know how the fuck we got here. Here, let's get started. So, one thing that I wanted to talk about is the Netanyahu, the Netanyahu back and forth with Hamas on the hostage release and the possible hostage swap, or a ceasefire and negotiations. Okay. I didn't know anything, but it would not surprise me if Russians could look at the infrastructure that's deteriorating and the low population in old, large, thriving industrial towns, etc., and think about how good it could have been and was. Yes. So let's get started on that point real quick, because that's important, I think, to talk about. Do you think Hamas had the foresight of the relentless and indiscriminate bombings and aimed to use it as a tool to help dismantle the current apartheid state of Israel? I think it's more so a suicide pact. I don't fucking know. I don't know what their aspirations are. I can only speculate on their actions, and if you think that they didn't realize that this would be the reaction, they probably did. Right? They most likely did. Maybe they didn't think it would be this violent. Right? But overall, I think it's more so like anytime Hamas is like lobbing rockets into Israel, they're not doing that because they think like, oh yeah, we're going to kill all the Jewish people in Israel by fucking lobbing rockets indiscriminately into Israel. It's more so a way to say that at the top of the hour, there's a 3-minute ad break. If you no longer want to see those ads, all you need to do is subscribe for $5 or for free with a Twitch Prime by connecting your Amazon Prime account to your Twitch account. Here's the 3-minute ad break now. Okay. Yeah. Okay. The reason why they do that is because the reason why they do that is because they want to say like, look, you can't keep fucking killing people in the West Bank. Like, someone has to retaliate. We are going to retaliate. This cannot be without cost. Right? New York Times wrote an article on this, even though like New York Times coverage on the matter is either like kind of thoughtful and smart, or just like straight up the worst propaganda you've ever seen. Even the thoughtful and smart parts usually still have a lot of the worst propaganda you've ever seen. Okay? But this article is called Behind Hamas's Bloody Gambit to Create a Permanent State of War. Hamas leaders say they waged October 7 attacks on Israel because they believed the Palestinian cause was slipping away and that only violence could revive it. I agree with this. I do think that that was the calculation. Okay? That was the calculation. I assume that was the calculation. I mean, but usually the reason why they fucking lob rockets into Israel is because it is a way to try and say you cannot maintain an apartheid without cost. Like, there has to be a cost for you, right? That cost could be diminishing your munitions, your Tamir interceptors, or that cost could literally be, if they are successful, if they get lucky, and it's like one of the 10% that is not intercepted, will be like people dying in Israel and then Israel retaliating. This, in my opinion, is yet again an absolute disastrous policy on behalf of Israel. It is a policy of arrogance and racism. That's quite barbaric. It is. I agree. You're not wrong. It is an incredibly barbaric retaliation. Except that's what people do when you fucking put them in an apartheid regime and you know, have an open air prison on the one side for 2 million people, that you control the literal caloric density of each individual Palestinian, that you've put them under mass surveillance. And then on the other side, you have the West Bank, where you're also still ruthlessly brutalizing them and forcing them to live under an apartheid structure. So, yes, the retaliation to that is, of course, barbaric. No one would disagree with you on that, I don't think. It's just that that retaliation or the standard of violence is set by the occupying force. Does that make sense? So, but the bloody arithmetic of Hamas leaders, the carnage is not a regrettable outcome from a big miscalculation. Quite the opposite. They say it is necessary cost for a great accomplishment, the shattering of the status quo and opening of a new, more volatile chapter in their fight against Israel. It was necessary to change the entire equation and not just have a clash. Khalil al-Hayya, a member of Hamas' top leadership body, told the New York Times in Doha, Qatar, we succeeded in putting the Palestinian issue back on the table, and now no one in the region is experiencing calm. Since the shocking, and for those who don't understand, like, you might think this is like an incredibly selfish move, right? And an incredibly violent one. And it is an incredibly violent one. I would never disagree with you on that. Except from their lens, if you are to put yourself for a brief moment in the shoes of the broader Palestinian movement, or directly in the violent expression, the singular militant retaliatory expression of Palestinian emancipation, from their perspective, they think, oh, these guys are just pushing us in the West Bank, slowly but surely. As I showed you the numbers, the settlements expanded rapidly, now sitting at 540,000, right? From their perspective, it's like, Netanyahu is going. The Abraham Accords are set in motion. Netanyahu is going to the UN and showing maps where, like, there is no Palestine at all. From the river to the sea, it's all Israel, right? So from their approach to the matter, they're like, well, we got to do something. Because there is no calm when you are living under an apartheid regime. There is no calm. There's no moment of clarity. There's no moment of peace. So, since the shocking Hamas attack on October 7th, which Israel says about 1,400 people were killed, most of them civilians, and more than 240 others dragged back to Gaza as captives, which, by the way, I want to clarify something on this front, too. I know a lot of you are, like, running the gamut. Many of you see these like accounts popping up, super viral everywhere, left and right. I do not believe, as far as all of the journalists I've checked in with on this, and all the people, even Oceanandes that I've checked in with on this, no, I do not believe that the helicopters were blowing up like Israelis who were running away in their cars. Please stop repeating this. That is not my perspective. That is not my opinion. No. Helicopters that were actually blowing up cars, which they did, were blowing up cars that were going in and out of the Gaza border that had opened up. Helicopters did operate in one area, specifically in one of the kibbutz, out of all of the operations that the IDF conducted. Okay, so one thing to consider is that don't do this thing where you're like, no, it's actually only Israel killed their own civilians and, like, Hamas didn't kill civilians. Like, if you watch the footage, you will see there were definitely Palestinian militants, and I have to repeat this over and over again, I think, because I don't want you fucking running around and spreading misinformation. Yes, Palestinian militants absolutely killed civilians indiscriminately. Please. The only information we have is on one of the kibbutzim that was attacked, where some of the Israelis held hostage, some of the Israeli civilians held hostage, might have been killed in the crossfire. That's the only real valid information that you have, and that's still unreliable firsthand testimony because it's still a person who was, like, literally in severe distress. Okay? Yasmin Palat is the only person that talked about this. The only thing that we have is on that front is the tank shelling potentially from the Hebrew Haaretz article that we read, and also Yasmin Palat's personal testimony. That's not from the concert goers escaping the concert. That's not from that at all. As a matter of fact, one thing that I will point to is the fact that even Hamas members, like Hamas spokespersons, even violent, like the more militant Hamas spokespersons, have openly talked about how it was a tactical miscalculation and that it was actually a mistake for them to kill civilians. So there's no reason on your end to fucking defend something that even Hamas is not defending, especially because it's not true. Okay? Anyway. Recently seen video of an Israeli aircraft blowing up cars and shooting 20mm cars driving away from the concert. Those were not cars driving away from the concert. A lot of those cars they had Palestinian militants in them. They might have actually ended up killing some of the hostages that the Palestinian militants had most likely put in those cars as they were trying to bring those people back into Gaza. But beyond that, these were not like civilians. Anyway. Obviously, I cover Hamas propaganda and the lies that Israeli officials say on a regular basis. That is not because, like, I am on the side of Palestinians, although I do believe in the emancipation of Palestinians, and it is moral, it is just, and it will happen one day. However, I also will always clarify. I will always clarify if there is misinformation happening. I hope that the state of the war with Israel will become permanent on all the borders and that the Arab world will stand with us, said Taher El-Nunu, a Hamas media advisor, told the Times. Except that part was, on their end, a miscalculation. That part was a miscalculation. That has not happened. And it most likely will not happen. Right now, Israel is basically stress testing the boundaries. How far can they get with ethnic cleansing and ethnic displacement without the Western media making a big stink and like actually changing the narrative and finally saying enough is enough? And also how far they can get away with without repercussions from regional actors that are positioned against Israel, whether it be from the Syrian side, or more importantly, from Lebanon with Hezbollah. I'm just a little confused on why you cede ground completely on the narrative of the October 7th attack. Mike from Pierre shows the list of people who were killed, and most of them were IDF soldiers. No. I've looked at that list. That list is the only reason why it looks like more than half of the people that were killed on that list, which is incomplete. That list that you're talking about with the highlighted is consistent with Haaretz's reporting. You're wrong. The reason why you think that list is like half, the reason why you think that list is half IDF is because they put their fucking, like, their names are longer. Their names are longer because they have sergeant and you know, that's why it looks visually as though it's like more than half. It's not more than half. It's still a third. Yeah. The Haaretz list so far has the most accurate, most comprehensive information. Okay? It's 1/3 of it being soldiers and like police officers and shit. Okay? And then the rest of it is civilians. The rest of it is civilians. Also, I mean, yeah, 1/3 is still a better ratio than Israel, absolutely, but it doesn't matter. Like, I'm not going to sit here and act like the things that I have seen personally that Hamas themselves put out was a lie. Like, that's ridiculous. They posted it. Why isn't the full list ready yet? What do you mean? Do you know how difficult it is to make sure that you have 1,400 people accurately analyzed through like forensic evidence? I don't know if you know this, but even in, you do realize the absolute hypocrisy in your statements, right? What? What did I say that was hypocrite? What? What is the hypocrisy in my statements? Usually people that come in here to say that are, usually the people that come in here to say stuff like that unironically are like getting mad at me because I'm not like pro-Israel or something. But right now I'm quite literally talking about misinformation that if you were to listen to my words, you would recognize as like misinformation on the Palestinian front. Very odd. The bad faith guys come in here and like they don't even fucking listen to what I have to say. Anyway. Someone was coming in here mad about a video they just watched from a hay farmer? Yeah, probably. Aren't many of the settlers armed? No, not the fucking, not people living in like not people living in the fucking villages in Israel on the borders. They have some like armed, like civilian security, but no, they're not armed. You're talking about settlers in the West Bank. A lot of settlers in the West Bank are. Anyway. That's not true. The envelope of Gaza are mostly armed. They're the first line of defense. Brother, having a bunch of fucking old ass people with like one gun in their houses is not like a legitimate first line of defense. You're crazy. And you're wrong. You're just repeating things that you've heard on Twitter. That's not true. They have civilian brigades, like they have like fucking neighborhood watch and shit, but ultimately that's not the same as like a standing military. As a matter of fact, a big part of the fucking anger coming from, a big part of the anger specifically coming from those people that live inside of the kibbutz was directly about this. Yeah, a lot of those guys are like literally peaceniks. Like they're fucking like commies and shit. Like that old lady that said shalom to the Hamas militant on her way out was a lady that literally worked on like transporting fucking Gazans into Israel so that they could get cancer treatment and shit. There's another kid that wrote, as far as I understand, I saw this. What do you call it? There's another, yeah, they're like communes. Like, sure, there's a lot of fucking psychos there too. Obviously, like Israel is a very racist state. Okay, Israel is a very racist state. So obviously, you have to like remember the population's attitude in an apartheid state is going to still be like pretty fucking right wing, and ultimately. Like, if you think that those are the same people who are doing the cinema watchers at Sderot Night Cinema, you're wrong. Oh, my God. Anyway. Yeah, this is what I was going to fucking show you. Not that it matters, and it's not one of the most important things going on, but Haim Katzman was killed in the Hamas October 7 attack. Jacobin has received permission from his family to publish a paper he wrote opposing Israel's ethno-nationalist order and advocating equality for all. Like, you're not right. There's a reason why so many of the fucking hostage family members right now are also pushing for a ceasefire, both because of obvious self-preservation. They want their fucking family members not to be blown up by Israel, But also, the other reason is because they're also fucking like peace activists and shit. It's true. From the perspective of like, from the perspective of Israel, adjusted to like how racist the Israeli politics is, yeah, these are the dudes who are at the forefront. Okay? These are the dudes who are like the least racist motherfuckers, 100%. You cannot maintain an ethno state that is an apartheid regime without, constantly pumping a shit ton of racist, agitative propaganda. You can't be a peace activist and a damn settler. Brother, it's not 1949. Shut the fuck up. Just shut up. Either you're completely oblivious to what the fuck you're talking about. Like, I don't know what you're saying. I don't understand what the fuck you're saying. Oh, damn settler, dude. Yeah, I know. Yeah, motherfuckers that have, like, lived there for their whole lives, dude. Like, they don't know. It's not their fucking fault. What are you talking about? Please. Also, how do you not understand this? How do you not understand this? You're literally talking about I know it's a low bar to meet, but it shows a lot about the anti-war feelings of these Israeli citizens when their sons, daughters, wives, husbands, parents, etc. are being held captive and they're telling the government to chill the fuck out with trying to get them back. It's quite inspirational. Exactly. None of you motherfuckers know what that's like, okay? If we're going to take a chill pill for a brief moment, if we're going to take a fucking chill pill for a brief goddamn moment, you don't know what that's like at all. You've never experienced it. Do a lot of people in the Western world hyperventilate? Absolutely, okay? They're hysterical about it, 100%. But you have no fucking clue. You have no clue what it's like to have, like, you have no clue what it's like to have the moral clarity. It's like the 9/11 victims immediately fucking petitioning the government to not do something crazy by using their family members' deaths as a way to enact bloody vengeance, okay? To turn around and be like, yeah, fuck this guy and fuck his brother or whatever the fuck. You're a psycho, dude. My brother was slaughtered on October 7th. I know he would be calling for a ceasefire. If the only justification for Israel's war on Gaza is to avenge deaths like his, the moral stain would be impossible for him to stomach. A lot of those dudes literally go and put their bodies on the line because their bodies are worth more in the eyes of Israel, in the eyes of the Israeli state, to defend fucking people in the West Bank. Okay? You don't know what that's like. You don't know what that's like to live in that racist of a fucking country. Some of you might. Maybe you've, maybe you attend some protests and shit too, but you're being ridiculous. Like, it's impossible to comprehend from our perspective because we don't live in a similar structure. We live in one that is like, that you can make an analogy to, okay? Why do you think I advocate for fucking singular secular nation state? Like, the reason why I do that is because I personally believe that there are still plenty of people. There are still plenty of people that absolutely will learn or relearn not to fucking hate their neighbors and will 100% go through a tumultuous period, but ultimately will have long-lasting peace. That's how it works. One state, a single secular state, doesn't mean like you expel all the Jewish people and do revenge on them. What if Israel annexed the West Bank entirely? Would it be justified to attack the settlers 60 years later? I'm genuinely worried about the morality of it. No, it wouldn't. It would be, at a certain point, it turns into like the same argument, which is it okay if like, and this is not something that Native Americans have ever advocated for, by the way. I'm not speaking for them at all, but it's not okay if like, Native Americans were just like literally going up and just doming fucking random people that have been living here, living in the United States of America. They would never advocate for that. They do not advocate for that. That's not what land back is anyway. But like, it's ridiculous. Yes, it is okay. It's their land. Okay, dude. Well, that's great, man. Thanks. Yeah. Okay, have fun with that, I guess. Anyway, moving on from this because it's just like it's something that I wanted to clarify, but it's also devastating and it served one of the plotters' main objectives. It broke a long-standing tension within Hamas and the group's identity and purpose. So this is also important because a lot of people within Hamas are conflicted on the internal structure. Dude, I feel so sad thinking about indigenous genocide. How can people just obliterate close to 50 million people over a 100-year period? Can you speak about Arabs in Israel proper being jailed for liking anything? Yes, we're going to talk about that in a second. It's incredibly fucking racist, and it's completely unacceptable. Also, heavy clashes are currently occurring as the Israeli Air Force is striking, reported outside Shifa Hospital right now as the IDF force is moving further into Gaza City. They're going to overtake the hospitals soon. Their goal is to overtake the hospitals and completely maintain it themselves. I mean, these are basically the last remaining areas that are heavily populated with like a shit ton of civilians. It's really dangerous. Anyway. Yeah, most of the journals like Motaz have left the north. I know. Yeah, things are not looking great at all. Hold on. Let's talk about the negotiations.
The Israel-Hamas war, the Israeli bombardment intensifying with explosions near a hospital rattling Gaza, even as Israel agrees to expand combat pauses to allow Palestinians to evacuate.
There is an urgent effort right now to win the release of some of the hostages held in Gaza by Hamas and an allied group. Matt Gutman starts us off from Tel Aviv. Good morning, Matt.
Hey, good morning, George. The U.S. is starting to express increasing concern about that death toll in Gaza. This morning, Secretary of State Blinken saying much more needs to be done to protect Palestinian civilians. But he is acknowledging the two things that Israel is doing right now, opening up those humanitarian corridors for several hours. We've seen thousands of people trudging on foot to safer areas, but also creating those 4-hour combat pauses. But it's unclear when the two overlap. Overnight, thundering explosions rattling at least 2 Gaza hospitals. Fireballs shooting skyward, people scrambling for cover. The Israeli bombardment intensifying near 2 of Gaza's main hospitals where Israel claims Hamas has command posts. With the death toll in Gaza soaring, Hamas-run authorities put it at over 10,000. The White House saying Israel has agreed to 4-hour combat pauses in northern Gaza to allow civilians to evacuate. Israel releasing this video today of thousands fleeing on foot, a tank in the foreground, saying more than 120,000 have made it through to safer areas in southern Gaza. Rami Massoud reunited with his family for the first time in weeks. His wife recounting a nightmarish journey on foot, dead bodies on the ground, bullets flying over the heads of her and her children. The White House has quietly been pressing Israel for longer pauses. This morning, Secretary of State Blinken voicing his frustration.
Much more needs to be done to protect civilians and to make sure that humanitarian assistance reaches them. Far too many Palestinians have been killed.
The White House increasingly concerned this war could trigger a wider regional conflict. Overnight, the U.S. struck what it says are Iranian-backed forces in Syria, the second such retaliatory strike. And it all comes as the lives of 239 hostages in Gaza hang in the balance. The Palestinian Islamic Jihad releasing video of 77-year-old Hannah Katsir and 12-year-old Yagil Yaakov. The hostages pleading for Israel to expedite negotiations for their release. ABC News isn't showing it, but the families agreed to us using these images. Yagil's mother, Ranana, whose other
Does anyone have the video?
son was also kidnapped, has called the situation a nightmare.
And they're not bargain chips, they're children. Children anywhere in the world are not supposed to be part of this.
Why won't the U.S. just turn off the money supply to put pressure on Israel? Because they don't want to, because they don't care. The reason why, I don't think you guys understand. The reason why America is not doing anything is because America likes that Israel is doing this. They just want to maybe dial it back a little bit so that everybody else shuts the fuck up and then they can continue doing it. If tomorrow every single Palestinian was expelled from the lands that they've lived on for hundreds of years, as they have been time and time again expelled already, this would benefit America greatly. That's it. They don't personally give a shit. Yeah. Here's another fun fact, I guess, that's not so fun. After Biden accused the Gaza Health Ministry of overstating the death toll from Israel's bombardment, a State Department official concedes that the real number is likely higher than that given by the ministry, e.g., bodies buried in the rubble. I think another part of the reason why the death toll is also higher is because the Gaza Health Ministry is most likely not counting the militants either. So there's also that part of it too. They released the information of every single Palestinian that has died, so they most likely are just simply releasing the information of all the Palestinian civilians who have died. That's why there is that's why there's two different numbers right now. If you look at Ynet the other day, Ynet said they'd killed 20,000 terrorists, according to an Israeli official. Why would Ynet or Y News, like the Israeli outlet, say that they've killed 20,000 people? That is double the number. I get that, but I can still see how the unsettlement in the Middle East will align with U.S. benefits in the region. Can't see the long goal really. If they can simply just quietly engage in forcible displacement and ethnic cleansing of Palestinians, then they can deal with Iran slowly but surely without any kind of compromise. What October 7 is basically another reminder to the rest of the world, to the Arab world especially, but the rest of the world beyond that, that you can't just like offer gas contracts to regional partners and, you know, continue an apartheid and continue killing Palestinians and continue expelling them without, while simultaneously assuming that there will be peace for you and the regional partners, right? You can't do that. That's what it is. That's what their stated goal is. That's their desire. The desire is to destabilize as a last ditch effort. Okay? IDF is claiming a misfire hit the Shifa hospital again. Man, that's so crazy. That's so crazy. Also, why would the health ministry lie? The whole world knows Gaza is getting bombed to hell, so they wouldn't have to fake anything to know civilians are dying. I know. That's why the Pallywood shit is like extra racist. Because it's like, dude, we can see what the fuck's going on. Like, what do you mean? Israel itself is like openly stating that they've been nuking the shit out of Gaza. Like, what's the argument here? Anyway. So, here's Mohammed Al-Safin, who says, all the reporting on the hostage prisoner swap negotiations seem to confirm that a deal was in place 3 weeks ago, and Israel decided to blow it up with a ground invasion. What might come next is a deal for Hamas to release more than 100 foreign civilian hostages and all of the Israeli women and children kidnapped on October 7th in exchange for freedom of more than 100 Palestinian children and women said to be held in Israeli prisons. The hostage release negotiations are said to be stalled on an Israeli demand that Hamas release the captives in Gaza first. The hostage negotiations are more complicated than has previously been reported according to the Qatari and U.S. officials. Some of the captives might be held by factions other than Hamas, and locating them in the maze of caves under Gaza and moving them to freedom could require a pause in fighting for at least 3 days, perhaps longer, knowledgeable Qatari officials say. So even from like a logistics perspective, even from a logistical point of view, it's not like they got internet down there, dog. They're not like They have to fucking, like, even if tomorrow they were like, all right, it's over, we're done, we're putting up our fucking hands and we're no longer fighting, you would still need to stop bombing to release these fucking hostages. Because, like, they can't, you know, there's no communications, right? But of course, for some weird reason, why are we negotiating with terrorists? Sure, human lives are most important, but if they try to negotiate with human life over funds and trade, I find that odd. We would negotiate with these terrorists. First of all, there has never been a point in time where people have not negotiated with terrorists, okay? Terrorist is a political designation. Terrorism is a political designation. These are militant groups, okay? I do not agree with them politically. I do not agree with their tactics, but ultimately they are a militant group, multiple militant groups, a coalition of sorts that have a perspective, an opinion, a need. They're not doing this because they're like, oh yeah, we love doing violence. That is a very stupid way to analyze the situation. Okay? It's dumb. It's very, very stupid. And unfortunately, no, I'm not just going to say it's racist. It's like, it's a way that America has been able to silence any kind of fucking opposition to, like, the war on terror, which we now at least look back at and realize was an abject failure. So why are you repeating the same exact fucking thing that they said back then? We don't negotiate with terrorists was unironically one of the first things that George W. Bush said, specifically in regards to the Taliban releasing Osama bin Laden. Okay? That's where that comes from. It was a way to justify bombing the shit out of Afghanistan and going into Afghanistan. So what the fuck do you mean? It's like literally the first strike. I don't understand what happened. Like, all those documentaries came out 20 years after 9/11, and everyone was like, oh shit, we really fucked this up, huh? Maybe we shouldn't have done all this death and destruction that killed a lot of our citizens too, even if we don't give a fuck about the millions of Iraqis that died, right? And now all of a sudden we're like, actually, never mind. I forgot all about that. I literally think 9/11 was awesome. Like, what we did after 9/11 was the best. Like, so sick, so good. Anyway, a test of whether the Qatar Hamas channel could deliver results came on October 20th. They released it to Americans, Judith Renan and her daughter Natalie. A 6-hour ceasefire was agreed to, allowing them to travel to the International Committee of the Red Cross. But a Hamas demand that Israel not monitor the transfer led to delays when Israel spotted surveillance drones and insisted on their removal. Okay? The stage seemed set for a larger release of hostages on October 25th, but 2 days later, Israel began its ground invasion of Gaza, and Hamas withdrew the deal. The increasing death and destruction caused by Israeli bombing also hardened Hamas's position. The mass destruction that's happening every day is a changing factor on the ground. The demands of yesterday might not be applicable today, Mohammed said. Communications have become increasingly difficult. On the outset, the Qatari prime minister could contact Hamas political leaders in Doha, who would then call military leaders in Gaza on cell phones. But Hamas claimed that Israeli bombing has destroyed the 2 cell communication nodes, making regular calls impossible. The situation worsened when Israel briefly cut all communications channels. One of the first things that the leader of the Al-Qassam Brigade said after October 7th, I think on October 8th, said was that we took these hostages because we are democratizing the violence that Israel delivers against us. So what you do to us, you will be doing to them. That was their original, that was what they said that their goal was. Okay? And we quickly found out that Israel has more of an interest in not getting back the Israeli hostages at all, but more so an interest in just ethnically displacing millions of Palestinians in the northern Gaza, the northern piece of Gaza that they want to occupy and maybe permanently occupy, as a matter of fact. Who knows what the fuck they're going to end up doing with it. Okay? We found out that it was more about vengeance rather than a real, legitimate military reason. Of course, if you followed everything that the Israeli Air Force and the Israeli government has done thus far in multiple other campaigns that they consider mowing the lawn, that they call mowing the lawn, you would have already recognized that, yes, there is no real reason. There is no real major military goal here. You're just like blowing up the tunnel systems. You're making it as difficult as possible to engage in some kind of violent retaliation, for sure. But that ultimately doesn't stop Hamas. It's not going to stop Hamas, because Hamas is just one expression, okay, of the radicalization that occurs when you live under a apartheid regime. Like, those people, unless you literally ethnically cleanse them, like kill every single Palestinian, are always going to want to fight back. They're always going to swear revenge. They're always going to try and fight back and do everything in their power to you know, try to maintain their territories that are getting smaller and smaller, and their violence is going to get worse and worse as a consequence of the violence that they are meeting. Everybody knows this. Everybody knows this. And yet, for some reason, everybody lies about it because they want to make it seem like there is a different reason. It's not just like super bloodthirsty. It's not just Israel being, it's not just Israel trying to do collective punishment for all Gazans and all Palestinians as a whole, and that there is like a real military purpose for this. Okay? Elent News, quite concerning regarding Shifa, if this is the view of the Israeli officials. Battles reported around Gaza Shifa Hospital. Unconfirmed reports say 8 IDF forces entered a hospital compound. Israel estimates at least hundreds of Hamas terrorists hiding at site. IDF estimates most staff members at Gaza Shifa Hospital are Hamas operatives. Some terrorists pose as patients. Most civilians fled hospital after 50,000 were originally used as human shields. Yeah, I mean, if this is like literally what the fuck they're saying, they're just going to slaughter people in the hospital. They're going to ruthlessly and mercilessly slaughter, as they have already with bombings, but this time up close and personal, blow up literal fucking international doctors. You understand? Like, because there are still currently maybe not that many international doctors there, but there are literally doctors in that hospital still, and amputated patients and shit. Israeli snipers are also firing on the windows of the ICU at El Quds. Just unimaginably cruel. Sorry, spamming, but relevant. Yeah, I saw this as well. One person killed, many children wounded after Israeli snipers target El Quds Hospital, according to the Palestinian Red Crescent. The Red Cross statement calling for the protection of patients, healthcare workers, and medical facilities in Gaza comes after the Palestinian Red Crescent Society said Israeli forces opened fire on the intensive care unit at El Quds Hospital in Gaza City. One person was killed and 28 others were wounded in sniper fire by Israeli forces at the hospital, the organization said. Go ahead, make this make sense to me. Disgusting. Disgusting. I mean, this is pure terror through and through. This is October 7th times, I guess at this point, what, times 100? That's where we're at. Like almost every day has been October 7th for Gazans, but of course it doesn't matter. Eyvallah. Ne yapacaksın şeyde? Saat yok. Saat daha bir yok. Evet. 2'de yaparsan, 2 gibi başlarsan yapmaya yerim. Eyvallah. I don't know that people can comprehend being forced from their home into a refugee camp in Gaza, living under siege and unable to leave. Yeah. Anyway, so this is where we're at, and in the Western world, our unconditional support has led to almost Israeli-style policies. Like almost Israel-style policies on our own citizens who are protesting these actions. You got campuses banning Jewish Voice for Peace. You have campuses banning phrases. You have people being arrested for uttering phrases in the Western world in an effort to justify, in an effort to squash any matter of like populist uprisings, popular protests against the genocidal actions of our most important ally in the Middle East. That's not even an ally. It's just a state. Okay? It's crazy. Mind-boggling that the dominant line in U.S. media commentary and in Congress is that the hostages have yet to be freed, while Israeli government itself prioritizes the destruction of Gaza over their release, and thousands more Palestinian civilians have been killed as a result. That's exactly what's going on. A prisoner swap, even a partial one, will probably need a temporary ceasefire, and the Israeli government knows that would create huge momentum to end the war that its leaders want to maintain. The more destruction Israel wreaks on Gaza, the more determined Hamas will be to secure a prisoner swap. The tough guy posturing won't work. And the horrifying tragedy of this is that it will probably only end with a prisoner swap that could have happened weeks ago. That's what's going on. The judiciary, according to plans put forward by Netanyahu, will be neutered. Public debate will wither. Civil society and the rule of law will cease to exist. Those branded as disloyal will be deported. Passage of Israel's judicial reform entrenches Jewish supremacy. This is the old, like, this was what you're talking about is literally the old policies. This came before October 7th. Now we're seeing some of those policies implemented in Israel. So obviously, Palestinian citizens of Israel who are Arab, who are declared Arab by the Israeli census because they're not Jewish, they're Christian or Muslim, those guys already have less rights than the Jewish citizens of Israel, right? So Palestinian citizens of Israel already know that when you say something, like, you are under significant more scrutiny. You can get arrested much easily. You can also be victim to literal direct pogroms. I'm not even talking about the West Bank. I'm talking about Israel proper now, right? Supposedly this democratic state for its citizens. However, there is one group of people that very rarely actually, unless they do a very big thing, unless they like literally put their body in front of the IDF and their operations in some way, there's one group of people in Israel that can at least like have some semblance of freedom in comparison to the Palestinian citizens of Israel. Those are the Jewish activists. Except now, even Israeli Jews are currently getting apprehended and bullied and are being mistreated as well. Okay? This is very important to recognize. I tell you all the fucking time. I think that this is a reality. Some Israeli Jews, they themselves know that this will inevitably come for them too. Okay? The Palestinian citizens of Israel are already getting arrested, even though they are citizens of Israel, but like everybody knows that they're not full citizens of Israel, right? They're Palestinian citizens of Israel, so they have a double standard and less protection under the law. Now they're literally arresting Israeli, like, Jews. They're arresting Israeli Jews as well. They were already beating, like, the Neturei Karta style Orthodox Jews who are anti-Zionist, but that was, like, mostly in the fucking West Bank or in Jerusalem, right? In occupied Jerusalem. Now they're fucking beating the shit out of, like, Israeli Jews. My friend Dr. Meir Baruchin was arrested and is facing disgraceful false accusations that are all clear political persecution. Peaceful and nonviolent teachers, along with activists, asked to come to a quiet stand by his side and were met yesterday in Jerusalem with severe violence. I strengthened the hands of Meir and the minds. Under the guise of war, fascism takes over. Together we will stop him. I'm telling you, man, I know what this looks like. I fucking know what this looks like, okay? You can't maintain a fascist regime. You cannot maintain an apartheid state when you have 5 million Palestinians that you can oppress. But ultimately, there are going to be, that in-group is going to get smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller, okay? It's just a matter of time. It's just a matter of time. This is untenable. Jews know this better than anybody else, dude. This is literally the basis of how, this is literally the foundation of the Holocaust. Like, this is the worst expression of fascism, the most successful expression of fascism that has ever occurred. And the major victims there were Jews. Like, they were deliberately targeted. But it didn't start with just Jewish people. It first started with Jewish socialists, trade unionists, and Jewish communists, okay? And it was a matter of political differences, right? And then it moved on to just Jews. This is how this works. First, you don't just magically overnight turn around and go, yeah, no, we're killing all the Jews. And then everybody goes, yeah, that's right. That's actually a great idea. It doesn't work that way. Okay? It's a baby step process, step by step. And every step of the way, they lied. They justified it. They weren't like, oh yeah, we love anti-Semitism and and that's why we're doing this. They made up reasons for it. Okay? They made up reasons for it. Those reasons were, of course, ridiculous, and everybody knows that with hindsight, but that was also part of the reason why people, and this is a really shitty smear, like this is like a cultural thing that I've talked about before, the notion that like Jews didn't resist the Holocaust is, one, ahistorical. There were plenty of Jews that resisted, okay? And two, the ones that did not, the civilian population, weren't aware that they were getting on fucking, like, they were going to death camps, okay? They didn't pick up their fucking bags thinking like, oh yeah, we're going to death camps. Anyway, I do think that the pressure is working, though. The phone doesn't stop. Overwhelming demands for a ceasefire catch Democrats off guard, and we're going to talk about that in a second. Have you ever seen the movie called Come and See? It's about the invasion of Belarus by the Nazis. No, I have not. Most Jews weren't killed until the very end either, when Nazi Germany realized they were going to lose, and they ramped up the violence. I mean, there was systemic execution and death camps already happening, but they severely leveled up the violence, severely and deliberately leveled up the violence. As, what is this? It's a good movie. Do not watch that movie. Okay, I don't know. I mean, I probably won't watch it, but I don't know. I don't have time. Yeah, they're coming after Israeli Jews too now for voicing their opinions, for defending the dignity of Palestinians. Scumbags, dude. Fucking Gestapo scumbags, okay? The jackbooted thugs of a fascist militant state. Bullshit, dude. Fucking bullshit. Disgusting. Just a quick question. Before Gaza situation started, what were the topics of your streams? Whatever the top news stories of the day are. I've always covered whatever the top news stories of the day are. Fuck. Anyway, where were we? What were we talking about? We were talking about the hostage release. Yeah. So that's the situation. That's the latest with the hostage release. Even logistically speaking, if Hamas was like, all right, we're putting up our arms, like, let's go ahead, like, please take the hostages away from us. Even then, it doesn't fucking matter. They would still have to stop. They would still have to stop bombing. They should stop bombing regardless. They should stop bombing because it's immoral. They should stop bombing because it serves no real purpose. It will only radicalize people further. They should stop bombing because, Palestinians deserve to live. And they should also stop bombing because the Israeli hostages and the many other hostages from all these other nationalities are also currently under the bombing campaign, dying in the hands of the Israeli Air Force. I don't understand how people can't see this. I don't know. What is this? Good friends, Lamau? What does that mean? Have you seen the footage of the IDF using a blindfolded Palestinian? Yes, I have. I have seen it. Do you think boycotting and demonstrations works? Because I start to think nothing is going to change and we all watch these people get killed every day until they're dead. Yes, it absolutely works. Here, let's talk about that. Great question. Okay, I'm going to segue into this that I wanted to talk about already. We will talk about this, okay? Great question. One, the real segue is at the top of the hour when there is a 3-minute ad break. So I'm going to run that ad break real quick. Here's a 3-minute ad break now. But also, let's talk about it. The phone doesn't stop. Overwhelming demands for a ceasefire catch Democrats off guard. Congressional staff say the mood inside the Capitol is tense, stifling, and bewildering as members brush off their constituents' outrage. Stop sending me the same fucking video that we've watched over and over again. I've watched the video 10,000 times at this point. Please, I know you think you're being helpful. Yes. The police brutalizing the Orthodox Jews who are anti-Zionist in Jerusalem. Yes, we've watched it 1,000 million gorillion times, okay? Please. I'm moving on from that point. I love you guys, but sometimes you're just like really, really fucking caught up in making me see one thing over and over again. An end to the bloodshed in the Israeli-Hamas conflict seemed more remote than ever on Thursday when President Joe Biden answered a question about the chances of a ceasefire by saying none, no possibility. But as Biden refused to use his leverage over the U.S.'s Israeli allies, voters and constituents across the country are overwhelming members of his party with demands to stop the violence. I think at this point it's like 70%. On the Democrat side, like there's a tremendous number of people. There's a shit ton of Democratic Party voters that are demanding a ceasefire, which is, I don't know, just crazy. All right, let's continue. Yeah, check out the graph here, reps versus constituents. We're going to talk about that in a second. Staffers from more than 24 Democratic offices say they're receiving an unprecedented number of calls and emails demanding from members to support a ceasefire, an onslaught for which their caucus was wholly unprepared. Following the October 7th terror attacks by Israel on Israel by Hamas militants, up to 3 weeks passed, and the death toll from Israel's retaliatory strikes have reached thousands before many offices even formulated an official response. Let it go to voicemail was the prevailing guidance in several offices, one staffer said. Let it go to voicemail! The yawning mismatch between voters and members' sentiments on this issue strikes many staffers as outrageous. The building is not listening, said one Democratic aide. I've never seen such a disconnect between where voters and constituents are and where Congress is. And that is saying something because there's always a disconnect. Okay? The deluge of calls is producing mixed results. Some members have called for a humanitarian pause as a direct result of the pressure, several staffers said. The Biden administration, which is also feeling the pressure, announced Thursday that Israel had agreed to limited daily pauses in the fighting to allow civilians to leave, with few further details available. It's cold comfort, but even if members are not speaking up for a ceasefire, the calls and the letters are making a difference, said one staffer. They're changing the calculations of how far some members are willing to go to support Israel, but many more members remain unmoved. Only 18 House Democrats have signed the ceasefire resolution introduced by Representative Cori Bush. Another handful have called for a ceasefire independently. On Monday, roughly 50 Democrats issued a less defined call for a humanitarian pause of limited time and space, but that demand was buried deep in a letter aimed at condemning the use of the phrase "from the river to the sea." 22 House Democrats joined Republicans in censuring Representative Rashida Tlaib. Like, think about that. Think about where the fuck we're at right now. Like, the most that the American government, which, by the way, does not need Congress, okay? Joe Biden can make one fucking phone call and end it, okay? Joe Biden does not need Congress. The State Department does not need Congress to tell Israel to fucking cut it out. It's one phone call. It's one fucking phone call. And it's a phone call that they're not willing to fucking make. That's the reason why they keep saying, let's do a humanitarian pause. Let's use smaller bombs, please. Why are they saying this? Because they don't care about the death and destruction and the ethnic displacement of Palestinians. They care about the outlook. They care about how much political pressure is mounting against them. Okay? That is precisely the reason why they're just like, dude, please dial it back a little bit. Dial it back a little bit. And it has worked. If you look at the actual death tolls, partially because a lot of people have escaped the northern corridor, the northern areas of Gaza, but it literally went from like 10,000 people in the first 30 days to like, the number of deaths have diminished a little bit. They are absolutely trying to lower it a little bit. Now, that doesn't mean anything because they're still fucking openly displacing a million plus people. But ultimately, it's ridiculous that America's first move on behalf of this conflict that we are supporting and facilitating was to censure a fucking Democratic Palestinian congresswoman. That's insane, dude. And the House and the Senate are laboring to pass roughly $14 billion in additional military aid to Israel in the coming weeks. This is the most I've ever seen people unify behind an issue and actively calling, one staff member said. Their office is one of many where staffers say the calls for ceasefire outnumber support for aid to Israel many times over. This is very unprecedented, the staffer said. The phone doesn't stop ringing at any point in the day. All the staff who spoke for the story requested anonymity out of fear of retaliation. Most work for Democrats, which tracks with a recent Data for Progress poll finding that 80% of Democratic voters support a ceasefire. 80%. The party's hapless response has left staffers horrified and deeply demoralized. Many whose daily job is to speak with constituents said senior staff are handing out talking points that minimize carnage in Gaza or that seem designed to confuse callers about where their representative stands. All the statements are so vague and so full of inaccessible jargon that we don't know what his true stance is, one staffer said of the lawmaker they work for. In one congresswoman's office, staff said they were being told to claim she supports a humanitarian pause, even though she had never said so in public. Another office is sending an automated response that states the death toll in Gaza is 3,000. That estimate is more than 3 weeks out of date and thousands shy of the real figures. On Monday, Gaza's health ministry estimated that the Israeli airstrikes have killed more than 10,000, 4,000 of them children. Another staffer said it did not occur to her superiors that some constituents would have personal ties to Gaza, which she realized when a caller said the bombardment had just killed most of his friend's family. The statement we're authorized to use doesn't contain any sympathy, the staffer said. It isn't part of any statement to say, I'm sorry that happened to you. She went off script to tell the caller she was sorry. An astounding number of callers say they're committed to never voting for their members, again, unless they support a ceasefire, several staffers said. Some constituents even promised to go further and mobilize friends and neighbors to vote against them. But some members seem equally fervent in believing this will blow over. They weren't going to vote for me anyway, one lawmaker said breezily when a staff member told him about voter threats to stop supporting him, according to the staffer. After an aide in another office. By the way, this is so disgusting because, like, where's your humanity? Like, this is people desperately trying to appeal to their interest in, like, self-preservation and maintaining their jobs, right? And offering them, like, some semblance of job security or some shit. But it's fucking insane to me. It's absolutely insane to me that, like, they don't even have the humanitarian approach to the situation where they're like, hey, man, maybe we should perhaps fucking not allow this bombing campaign to continue. Many letters are part of the targeted campaign, but by no means are those campaigns small. Yasmin Taeb, the legislative and political director for Empower Change, a grassroots Muslim advocacy group that's lobbying members to join Cory Bush's ceasefire resolution, said on Friday this morning that there have been more than 380,000 letters sent to the House alone. Some aides working for lawmakers opposed to a ceasefire say their superiors have warned them outright not to contradict their bosses on social media. There's a real feeling of being complicit. The aide of a member known for taking principled unpopular votes and who usually invites frank debates among staff says this member is uncharacteristically quiet on the conflict and that it cloisters with just a few top advisors. The disconnect between the silence this imposes and the outrage of constituents and the staffers like herself is uncanny. We're being asked to pretend that every day is a normal day in the office, the aide said. Meanwhile, anyone who answers the phones can see the anger is not letting up. The phone rings every 5 minutes, said one staffer for a lawmaker who believes the outrage is starting to die down. The callers are growing more diverse in age, identity, and party affiliation. Countless staff members share constituents' sense of horror. There's a real feeling of being complicit, one said. We, that is Congress, are being instrumental in the ability of Israel to wipe Palestine off the face of the earth. Frightened of venting their public outrage, many are fuming anonymously in venues like Instagram's Dear White Staffers. In the midst of all the uproar, the office is calm, as if everyone's walking on eggshells when there are literal war crimes happening with the help of the U.S. government, one contributor wrote. On Wednesday, in an unusual rebuke of their members, more than 100 staffers staged a walkout for a ceasefire on the steps of the House of Representatives. Do not let up. Keep pushing. I've said this already. I said this weeks ago. But the dam is breaking, okay? It's breaking. But inside the building, the word ceasefire has been distorted into a third rail. Many lawmakers fear that calling for a ceasefire will draw the wrath of the American Israel Public Affairs Committee, AIPAC, a pro-Israel lobbyist group and a formidable foe to any member who opposes military aid to Israel. During last year's midterms, AIPAC raised more money for Democrats than any other interest group. At that same time, it poured $4 million into an effort to unseat Representative Andy Lewin, a Democrat from Michigan, a self-declared Zionist, because he opposed the demolition of Palestinian homes in the West Bank. It worked. Levin lost his primary. Members see members who step out of line lose their elections, the Democratic aide said. They sense safety in the herd. If only 24 members are for a ceasefire, and even Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders won't say the word. Maybe they should go with the pack, another staff member said. That's the calculation. That's why I'm so shocked at Bernie Sanders's statements, or rather lack thereof, so far. And this goes beyond I need you to understand. This goes beyond him refusing to call for a ceasefire. That's one additional expression of Bernie Sanders' ineptitude and lack of interest. Here's the tweet that went viral in 2021. No, he didn't say it today. This is an old tweet that I posted. When I say I don't know what the heel turn with Bernie is, this is what I'm talking about. He's always been one of the most critical voices against Israel in Congress. Now, obviously, that's not a high fucking bar to clear. Bernie is a bit of a soft Zionist, for sure. The devastation in Gaza is unconscionable, Bernie Sanders said on May 16th, 2021. We must urge an immediate ceasefire. The killing of Palestinians and Israelis must end. We must also take a hard look at the nearly $4 billion a year in military aid to Israel. It is illegal for the U.S. to aid support to human rights violations. It's pretty clear that AIPAC is going to war with anyone that calls for a ceasefire. Israel is going for a genocide, and they're putting pedal to the metal. Bernie Sanders has not used this level of aggressive sentiment this time around. I don't know what it is. It's like he's 800 years old. Why the fuck wouldn't he be as aggressive this time around? It's not like he's going to, I don't know. It's not like he's going to turn around and fucking run again, I don't think. Like, what is he doing at the tail end of his career? At the tail end of his political career. It is so shocking. Like his sentiment, his statements on the matter have been used by AIPAC. Like, that's how bad it is. A few other so-called critics have taken the same turn. Essentially, he prefers Palestinians as downtrodden, exposed victims in need of saving, knowing the U.S. never will, and never wanted our people to have agency materially by way of armed resistance. Yeah, I mean, look, in 2014, when the genocidal Israeli occupation was doing another one of its massacres in Gaza, Bernie had a town hall where he furiously raged at pro-Palestine activists about Hamas tunnels. He's vile Zionist scum, says Zay Squirrel. I think that there is a political calculation there for Bernie Sanders. I think there's a political calculation there. I don't think he's a vile Zionist scum. I think he's a soft Zionist. He's like a J Street guy, okay? Like a soft liberal Zionist, which, again, is still a tremendous amount of moral courage in the American Congress, okay? If you adjust it to, like, the attitude that people have, if you adjust it to the attitude that people have broadly, you know, it's still fucking nuts. Here, this guy says, I didn't expect him to come out on October 7th and start railing against Israel, but I'm genuinely surprised he hasn't taken a harder line at this point. I expected the standard pro-Palestine politician. I condemn Hamas, but Israel's actions have caused a cycle of violence, but we've barely even gotten there. Yeah. Why do we got to grade on a curve? Because we're talking about election. We're talking about electoral politics. When I talk about the morality of a situation, I'm covering it from an entirely different angle than when I talk about election worries and concerns. Okay, electoral politics is a very different game and the political calculations that people make with their statements is a very different game than you know what your genuine opinions might be on an issue. You can have unflinching support for many different revolutionary movements around the world and not be able to say a single fucking thing about it. As a Jew with older relatives that sound like Bernie, I think something a lot of people don't get is Zionism was a labor movement. His socialist policy and the socialist politics of a lot of first-gen Jewish Americans were likely influenced by Zionism and his time in the kibbutzim. Yeah, I don't know. I think that, what is this? The expression of Scotch liberal and fascist bleeds has never been more applicable. Some of the most ignorant, bloodthirsty people I've ever seen, and that's saying something. A whole lot of young people are realizing liberals are no less dangerous than conservatives. It's also a different game than just talking opinion on Facebook and Twitter. 99% of people have no skin in the game for voicing their opinions. Yeah, but Bernie Sanders has done that. This is, I'm sorry, a brave thing to fucking say in the United States of America. So if he has demonstrated that courage before, okay, then I don't know why he's not saying it this time around. Don't say, no, it's not. You're fucking delusional. There's a reason why he's pretty much the only congressperson who's ever said this. Okay? 1 month late, so brave. No, dog, he hasn't said this. This is from 2021. Hello? He hasn't even said this yet. You mean 2 years early, maybe? Meanwhile, this is what the fuck's going on. Alex Kane, senior reporter at Jewish Currents, writes, Columbia University is suspending Students for Justice in Palestine and Jewish Voice for Peace as official student groups through the end of the fall term. Brandeis was the first university to take action since October 7th, citing SJP's alleged support for Hamas. Columbia is citing violations of schools' policies. Meanwhile, Ron DeSantis is trying to do the same, but has run into difficulties due to a little thing called the First Amendment. Private schools can, however, take such actions. Fordham banned its SJP chapter. On Thursday, Columbia SJP and JVP participated in a peaceful action on campus as a part of a nationwide campus day of action for Palestine. This is what the student paper had reported. Hundreds of pro-Palestinian students walk out as a part of a national call to action, gather for peaceful protest, art installation. The demonstration's a flyer, which was posted on Columbia Chapter's Jewish Voice for Peace and Students for Justice in Palestine Instagram accounts and distributed at the walkout. By the way, I want to point something here, okay? This is why I fucking defend certain aspects of like criticisms that are launched towards sentiments that are being expressed by Palestinians and those who defend Palestinians here. This is why I think it's like, even if I'm talking to someone who is not like cynically weaponizing, and I don't think Ethan was like cynically weaponizing the sentiment. I think he was truly trying to tell me why like some Jewish people are afraid of this term and how they foresee it. But the reason why I defend this kind of thing unconditionally is because of this. Is because at a time when there is unprecedented resistance against Israel's actions and America's complicit behavior towards Israel's war crimes, immediately people are using anything and everything they can to just stop this momentum. I am quoted in this article about my university, and now I have Zionists coming at me in my DMs. I'm proud to be an anti-Zionist Jew today. Clashes over Israel-Hamas war shatters students' sense of safety on U.S. college campuses. I think that the shift of experience with Jews on campus has been extremely shocking, said Roth, who was in Israel last summer for a study abroad program. A lot of students came to Tulane because of the Jewish population, feeling like they supported like a majority rather than a minority. And I think that's definitely shifted. Tulane isn't alone. On other college campuses, yeah. Here's what it is, okay? One, there's two different points of view here, okay? I'm not going to sit here and deny that, like, anti-Semitism doesn't thrive in environments like this. It, of course, does, okay? It does, absolutely, okay? But there's two different things here. One, Jewish people in general that are Zionist, okay, are still a tiny sliver of the Zionist movement. Just like Jewish people who are anti-Zionist, okay? The battle lines on this issue are drawn not around Jewish people, but instead on the broader Zionist community. And the broader Zionist community is comprised of almost entirely Christians, okay? So that's very important to understand. However, I think there's a couple different things that we need to consider. One, these anti-Zionist protesters, whoa, God, you scared the shit out of me, Kaya. These anti-Zionist protesters are not anti-Semitic, okay? Are there anti-Semitic people in anti-Zionist movements? Certainly. I'm not going to say that there isn't. But broadly, these anti-Zionist protesters are not anti-Semitic. However, Jewish students on campus see the real anti-Semitism that's going on. And also on top of that, if they are Zionist, believe that anti-Zionist protests are inherently anti-Semitic and understandably get terrified. There's also a sense of discomfort that comes from having a position that you thought was favorable, that everyone was on board with, and then realizing, oh my God, there's a lot of fucking people around me that don't actually agree with me at all. The other part of this, and the reason why there isn't like a tremendous amount of like pro-Israel protests, is because you're not going to really protest from a position of comfort. Like, that is, pro-Israel is the policy of the American government. You don't really need to take it to the fucking streets. Like, what do you want? What are you going to demand? Take it to the streets and be like, please, more bombs? More bombs than the ones that you've given us? Please, go ahead. Give us more bombs to kill more children? No, like, you're not going to fucking say that. Why would you? Whereas, of course, protests are going to happen in the opposing direction because they're being done to be heard. Like, these people want to be heard. These people want the government to change its behavior. Of course, there's going to be fucking protests that are very large. So it certainly stems from a disconnect, a deliberate one that has been carefully pushed by the Israeli government, okay, which is that all Jews are Zionists and all and the Israeli state is in defense of all Jews, and if you don't defend the Israeli state, like, the Holocaust is going to happen again, and anyone that shits on Israel wants the Holocaust to happen again. You should be very afraid. these guys that say they hate Israel actually hate you. They don't want you to have your own nation state. Look, there's like 23 Arab ethno states, and no one's stopping them, which is pretty funny to say, by the way, because America certainly is stopping them as best as they can. America does its own personal ethnic cleansing inside of those Arab ethno states. But regardless, and they just don't want Israel to have its own tiny sliver, its small bean ethno state. Okay? So, a good quote from John Gans. Yeah, I read this earlier. I had an argument with a friend. He insisted that Jews were only really safe in Israel among fellow Jews. I pointed out the absurdity of this, since Jews were quite evidently not particularly safe in Israel. And he shifted. Well, at least if you die there, you die amongst your brothers. This is what I mean about nationalism being a doctrine of despair. Ultimately, when you pull back the layers, nationalism is about desiring death. Death for others and death for yourself. A warm, comfortable death for you and a violent, cold, and terrible death for the other guy. It chooses being subsumed in a mass to avoid the terrible difficulty of remaining human that rises to the fore in tragic moments like this one. When I die, I hope it will be here in New York, the promised land, surrounded by my brothers, all the different peoples of the world. You know? That's it. Like, are Jews safe in Israel, more safe in Israel than they are in New York? No. They're not. Especially as a consequence of Israel's actions. Like, quite the opposite. You know what I mean? New York doesn't have an Iron Dome. Yeah, also, New York is the largest diaspora of Jewish people on the fucking planet, dog. What do you mean? If anything, Israel's continued violent actions make Jews all around the world less safe. This is one of the most important principles, in my opinion. One of the most important principles of how this shit, how Zionism betrays the security notions, the security aspirations that it claims it has for Jewish peoples all around the world. Anyway. Also, the U.S. government absolutely has missile defense ready for major American cities. Lamau. Yeah, I know. Bro, what is Eric Adams' connection to Turkey? I don't fucking know, but I haven't had time to read into that at all, which is kind of sad because I love Eric Adams, and any kind of Turkish news story is like always going to be right up my alley. And Eric Adams getting money from Turkish officials is like incredibly my shit. But apparently the FBI seized his phones. But yeah, if you are wondering why I take a stance that I do when it comes to, you know, people being fucking censured or people being kicked out of college campuses, okay, for being pro-Palestine, yeah, I'm not going to concede. I don't want to. I will not concede on this. Like, I will always defend those who are being fucked over. It's ridiculous. Okay? This was a major disconnect in my conversation with Ethan yesterday. I think that I didn't do a good job of like trying to describe that, like, I'm not considering people's fears because I'm not describing what this from the river to the sea statement, what that expression means, while factoring in what those who are in opposition to Palestinian emancipation feel. Okay? That's it. Because, like, while anti-Semitism is a real problem, Okay, it's a major issue, and it certainly skyrockets in times like this. And also on top of that, there is this like epigenetic trauma as a consequence of both pogroms and the Holocaust that many Jewish people experience and feel. And I think it's a valid fear to have as well. Okay, it is not one that it is not one that is saved through the maintenance of an ethno-state in the middle of the fucking desert, ruling over Palestinian Arabs and just destroying their lives. I try my very best to describe that. I think it was important because ultimately I am in favor of Palestinian emancipation. I'm in favor of freedom for Palestinians. And like the counter to that is, well, you're not listening to the concerns that Jewish people have. And Jewish people are afraid of anti-Semitism, and anti-Semitism is on the rise, which I understand and I agree, and it is completely unacceptable, right? But ultimately, like, I'm not going to counter that by being like, well, that's Islamophobia is on the rise too, right? But the government has shown, and demonstrated, these organizations have demonstrated a tremendous amount of goodwill in protecting Jewish students and protecting Jews in America, which is great, and they should. But they've also shown that they will cynically use any and every kind of sentiment expressed to squash Palestinian voices and pro-Palestinian voices in general. Not that you did a bad job, but it is a near impossible task when one side is propaganda to believe that freedom for Palestine means genocide for Jews. You can't discuss your way out of that. I don't know how else to cover it other than, I mean, I guess like, that's why I wanted to, I think that that's part of the reason why you have to have, you have to have like an anti-Zionist a Jewish person to speak on the matter, you know? Because at the end of the day, I am Muslim. I'm Muslim. It's like culturally, it doesn't matter if I'm a practicing Muslim or not, right? Doesn't matter if I fucking pray 5 times a day. At the end of the day, when I speak about these things, especially with a Jewish person, it's always going to go back to like, well, you don't understand the fears because you're not Jewish. And that's why I, that's part of the reason why in America, especially when I am trying to address a much larger community of Westerners, I try to do that by, invoking Jewish scholars, invoking Israeli scholars and their arguments and their work. Aren't the fears of Jewish people about the rise of anti-Semitism a distraction from the genocide? No, I don't think that all of those fears can be monolithic. That's ridiculous. No, there are real understandable concerns from Jewish people. I don't think that we should I don't think that we should discount that. Like, no. Are there some Zionists, not Jewish Zionists, by the way, Christian Zionists especially do this way more, where like they will go way beyond, like they'll go above and beyond and like shit on Jewish anti-Zionists on a regular basis, right? And tell them that they're like not real Jews or whatever. And it's like, how dare you fucking say such insane things, right? Anyway. I think the comparison you made to BLM slogan was apt. A lot of white people didn't like BLM, positioned themselves as if BLM stood Black Lives Matter more than white ones, which is obviously what it didn't stand for. Yes. Dude, you have people non-jokingly calling you Hamasabi or shit like that to make it seem like you don't get that discrimination is wild. Yeah, I mean, I do. Anyway. I think you're spot on with this. My parents are Christian fundamentalist Zionists, and pointing them towards Israeli anti-Zionist Jews has actually changed their minds. Yeah. Chatters, American Jews have been indoctrinated, even most Reformed Jews like myself, to believe that the only safe place on the planet for Jews is Israel. I didn't start to get a real understanding of the Israeli project until I was in college. Yeah. Anyway, anti-Semitism is never acceptable. Never. And I will always fight against it. But I think many people in here know that. It's mostly uncharitable fucking losers that engage in hate raids and whatnot that don't see that. Or are themselves not really interested in anti-Semitism at all and are simply just pushing narratives. Weeks ago, I had a conversation about River to Sea with my dad. We're Jewish, who has the same arguments as Ethan, and I said basically what you said yesterday, and he changed his mind. Oh, the other thing I wanted to mention is I think that, like, college campuses especially are hotbeds of, I guess, different opinions because of the demographics. Like, people don't fucking realize that if you live in the real world and grow up in the fucking real world when you're not almost entirely surrounded by, like, other 18-year-olds and 19-year-olds, yeah, you're going to see a broad variety of different opinions, but on Israel, they're mostly united. So for the first time ever, you're removed from your home, removed from your family, and you're in an environment with like-minded individuals or, you know, age-appropriate individuals, and all of a sudden, you look at the demographics, and it's entirely shifted in the other direction. Because there is a major demographic shift on the on age. Okay? Under the age of 44, and all Ethan could say was "fuck you" at the end, friend. No, I don't want to hear this. Okay? Ethan is very passionate about this issue. I don't care about making drama. Please don't come in here and try to fucking start drama. This is all dumb motherfuckers do all day, every day. I've said this already. I don't want to fucking hear it, okay? Also, the Frogan being anti-Semitic hate is wild, considering she had a lot of, I think she mentioned 47 relatives who died in the Holocaust and her grandfather lost land to Israel. She has a right to be as emotional as him. Yes. The only thing I will say is that, here's the thing, okay? I will mention this. This is like what went viral. Hasan says he cannot moderate his chat Discord from calling Ethan a racist, okay? Which, of course, was a major clip chimp. And lo and behold, of course, LSF immediately brigaded the absolute living shit out of this. And my statement for this is going to be once and for all very clear. What I was trying to tell Ethan in that moment is that, yes, of course, when there's 32,000 people with an open fucking chat policy, when they hear things that they've heard time and time again that are identical to those who are defending Israel, even though Ethan does not, okay, their response is going to be, there's only so much I can do to, like, temper that response. I've spoken out against people being aggressive and ruthless time and time again to both Ethan and Hila. I think it's inappropriate, and I'll say that again. I don't think that Ethan is your enemy. I said it even before in the beginning of this conversation. Ultimately, though, of course, when people hear that comparison, even if you don't personally believe that, like, River to the Sea is akin to the Confederate flag or anything like that, or the swastika, obviously people are going to react in the way that they're reacting, and there's only so much I can do to moderate that discussion at that point. I can't change people's minds on how they foresee you. He is correct on one front, though. They have done a remarkable job on Ethan's Reddit and Ethan's community in general in squashing any kind of, like, psychotic backlash that I may experience, okay? That's true. I think that's because Ethan's community broadly is like a comedy podcast community, so it's not, like, entirely political, whereas this community is entirely political, so therefore people are very, very, what? You're not Jewish, Hasan? What does that mean? Like Ethan's chat is subscribers only, members only usually. And on top of that, they even shut down the chat in general. And I think that I probably should have hit the emote only before anything else started. Okay. They did it when you first both talked about this on Leftovers. Yeah, I know they did, because they want to shelter both Ethan and myself from getting, you know, ridiculous amounts of fucking unjustifiable hate. Okay. Going politics and then finding out is very divisive. Anyway, my point is, I wasn't saying that I cannot moderate my chat in Discord. There is limits to how much moderation I can engage in. There's also a top post from Frogan from the same community, unfortunately. Yeah, there's also, let's be fucking very real. Like, one thing that Morgan talked about was, like, Ethan brought a lot of unjustifiable hate towards me. Here's what I will say. That's not coming from H3H3's own community, okay? The H3H3 community across the board politically is way closer to where Morgan is, okay? That's coming from an entirely separate community. Are there actual Ethan Klein heads in there that are maybe also fucking attacking Morgan? Certainly. But the brigades that she's experiencing, and they've been insane, okay, and unjustifiable, are not coming from Ethan Klein heads. I'm sorry. It's ridiculous. That's not correct. Ethan himself expressing hatred or anger towards Morgan or anyone else is not going to cause his fans to turn around, is not going to cause his fans to turn around and, like, change their opinion overall. Do you guys think that the H3H3 community is unironically a place where, like, there aren't a shit ton of Muslim Arab fans? What are you talking about? You can literally see where all of this hatred is coming from. Let's be real. Okay? Don't fucking come on, man, me. You're being delusional. This isn't even about protecting Ethan, okay? Come on. What are we doing here, guys? What are we doing? Are we real serious about this? Are we going to be serious about this situation, or are we just going to fucking act like the H3H2 community itself? You're being delusional. It can be more than one community. Yeah, no, totally. Totally. I mean, it's pretty simple. You can find out where people are mostly posting if you go to a subreddit. Like this operation in and of itself. Frogan tells a chatter to unalive themselves. I wonder where this came from. And I wonder where this clip chimp is coming from. Come on. Come the fuck on. Like, dude, you think these are H3H3 podcast fans? Like, that's who's doing this? If you go to the H3H3 podcast subreddit, you will see a very different perspective. Come the fuck on, dude. Here, I'll give you a much better understanding of how this shit works, okay? Here. Everyone else is allowed to be completely unhinged and call for a literal genocide. Frogan is supposed to just suck it up and be harassed. Completely unserious convo. Is that what I said? That's not what I'm saying at all. I've also personally told her that this is not happening. This is mostly not even happening because of her perspective, okay? It's happening because it happened to 39 Daff. It happened to many people that make the mistake of, like, openly, publicly defending me. It's also part of the reason why I don't really collaborate with other people as much, because there is a cancer, okay? Come on. Come on. You are missing the forest for the trees here. You're literally looking at the situation. They want to isolate you, dude. Yeah, it works. It fucking works, okay? It does. It does work. It sucks, but it's the truth. Okay? Here. Look. Here is a response from this 2.2 thousand upvoted post. Bullshit alert. 1. Destiny viewer in the first tells Frogan to kill yourself. Viewable in the clip. Twitch user Icarus Bath tells Frogan, take a trip to the 30th floor and take the quick way down. Heart. Okay? Frogan reacts equally. On his publicly viewable Twitch channel, Icarus Bath's public socials all follow Destiny. And he has thousands of messages in Destiny's chat. Voluminous suicide encouragement, such as, she needs to kill herself. 2. Malicious clipping to omit context. Destiny viewer number 2, OP, just coincidentally catching this moment, right? Then specifically clips the 9-second snippet, purposely omitting Frogan identifying and reading out the comment above. By happenstance, OP also suggested Frogan should kill yourself in prior comments of his. Krieger, random drugs I think Frogan needs to rope. Number 3, vote brigading and comment flooding. This thread is posted on Destiny's related Discord and chat rooms. Currently, 4 of the 5 top comments are all from r/Destiny. Comments highlighting the above reality, full picture, are magically downvoted. This is sitting at 0 upvotes. Come on, guys. Be for fucking real for like 3 minutes, please. Like, what are we doing here? This is very deeply unserious, nah? Eyvallah. You think this is coming from like Ethan's community? Get the fuck out of here. This is not defending Ethan. This is just defending the truth, okay? But some of you still want to fucking do this. Look, I agree with all this, but I still think Ethan's disgusting rant made things way worse because it gave the Cancer's D community something to glom onto. Sure. Why was Frogan brought up in the first place? Who brought her up? None of this harassment from this community would have happened if Ethan didn't blow up Morgan's tweet and bring it up yet again yesterday. No one here seriously thinks H3 community is the hate community. Ethan is using his platform to attack Morgan. That sends that specific community towards her. Guys, you think this is the first time they've been fucking shitting on Morgan? No. Ethan bringing up Morgan, however, gave them just cause to reach a broader audience. They've been doing this already. Come on. I mean, it's over anyway. It's done. Like, it's succeeded, okay? It's successful. But please, be for fucking real. Anyway, but of course, there could be countless hours of good work discussing what's going on the ground in Gaza, raising money, raising funds. And ultimately, none of that shit matters to a lot of people who don't fucking care about any of that. They just are deeply unserious. They want drama. And the only way that many people can like feel close to the issue or at least make this more palatable is through the framework of what political commentators online are saying to one another and how there's a rift happening. Why is Ethan allowed to throw a tantrum, but all of chat and the mods and even members of the community who stream all of that need to hold their tongues? Because you are, whether you like to admit it or not, an expression of what I'm saying. And if I'm not saying something, then they'll come for what you're saying and will make it seem like I'm saying what you're saying when I'm not. This has been happening over and over again. Okay? That's it. That's it. So if you care about like truth, if you care about getting people to understand a certain perspective, then don't cave to the best of your ability to those who want to use you as ambassadors of my community. That's it. That's it. You should understand. This is bad faith, especially when people know you and your content. Yes, but at a certain point, after the 7,000 bad faith criticism that gets 500,000 fucking views on YouTube, at a certain point, more people know me from the bad faith perspectives than the actual, genuine, charitable perspectives that I was fortunate enough to experience when I first started. I'm with you all the way on this, man. I've been defending leftovers for months now, believe me, but I've never had to moderate a hate raid in Morgan's stream and Discord until Ethan said her name. Yes, Ethan said her name, and the hate raid in Morgan's stream and Discord did not come from Ethan, though. Did not come from his fans. Ethan said her name. Immediately, who the fuck mobilized? Anyway. Does Ethan know this? I don't know. I don't even know if he cares. Him putting a spotlight on her is not appropriate. Just like him saying, you'd get executed by Hamas immediately or some shit like that is not appropriate. Not. But ultimately, if you think that this is where they're coming from, if you think that these are like Ethan Klein's fans who were like mobilized because of these are Ethan Klein's fans because they were mobilized by Ethan to go and like shit on Morgan. No, I don't agree with that. Anyway, now that we are Ethan Klein's fans. Exactly. This community has more Ethan Klein fans. And of course, Ethan Klein's fans are very critical of Ethan Klein. But this has gone on for way too fucking long. And a lot of you are dumb as fuck for leaning into it and allowing this drama farming cycle to continue. I'm trying to get you to be a little bit more fucking intelligent in the way that you move when you know that there's like round the clock mass surveillance of every single thing that people say in this chat. It is taking away from what I'm trying to do. It is taking away from the issues that I want to discuss. Not just Hoscord either. We can disagree with one another every day, okay? And we often do. I disagree with many people in my chat regularly. Not just this chat. It's Hoscord. It's every other aspect. It's every expression that comes from someone who is a fan of mine, okay? These people are rabid. They're psychopathic. They are going to do whatever the fuck they can. We are keeping an eye on you. Be careful. What? Who the fuck are you? Suck my dick. Anyway. I meant supportively. Okay. D himself had to ban long-term subs the other day because he was caught photoshopping this chat to be anti-Semitic. These people are deeply unserious and unwell, and the less attention you give, the better. Yeah. I think that there's a lot of people who are just, like, insane. That sounds fucking psychotic. That there is someone in his community that unironically, this screenshot was tweeted out by their leader, then quickly deleted. The only problem, it's fake messages. Yes, L, Ethan, Zionist pig, Ethan Coping, Zionist rat, W, Hamas. That's the level we're at. Okay? Ethan, I support genocide. W, Hamas, Palestinians deserve more than it'll never happen. Allies freed Auschwitz too early. That's what he fucking said. Ethan literally thought this was real, by the way. Holy fuck. He told me this. He saw this and he literally fucking said, is this a real fucking person? He just said, Ethan looks sick. That's psychotic. That's psychotic, dude. Who fucking does this shit? This guy only said Ethan looks sick on 11/9. Yesterday. That's all he said. But here, in this completely fucking made up, photoshopped, like who does that? Who? How can you be so fucking mentally ill that you literally Photoshop what random chatters are fucking saying? To specifically go around and be like, well, Hasan isn't saying it, but guess what? He's fostering a community of anti-Semites. Look at all of his anti-Semitic sentiment being expressed in his fucking chat. That's insane. What is this? N1 not is here. Chat logs 2. What is this? I hope Hamas spits on Ela's family's bodies. Like, if you think this is the kind of sentiment, first of all, it could literally be a hate raid. You know that? It could literally be a hate raid. We ban shit like that all the time. He used me, dog. I would never say that. Nina is here. What did Nina is here say? In it, Islamophobia is bipartisan, hostile. I think it will take time. He needs to talk to anti-Zionist Jews. Please try to understand. It's very hard for Jewish people to undo how they understand the situation. That's crazy. Is that what they were saying? I'm going to text them right now. If you've ever done anything like this, you're for real a sick person, like an actual sociopath who needs help to genuinely seek and get medicated. Who the fuck does that, man? Let me tell you, Ethan saw it. And he thought it was real. He literally told me that. He texted me this last night. To me, fuck, man. I feel for Ethan in his situation because he doesn't understand the level of insanity these people will go through to break up your friendships, the level of manipulation. Where did he see it? Make sure to qualify to Ethan that there were people being shitty yesterday because there were people being shitty yesterday. But not like that. Where it says a lot of Kappa spammers when he said he cared for Palestinians, or when he said something about Israel's actions towards Hamas, but nothing like the rabidness in the screenshot. Yeah, I know. Like, will there be statements? Will there be statements that from people in here that are being nasty towards Ethan? Absolutely, abso-fucking-lutely. But that's crazy to just look at the issue is the D community cannot stand on their ideals, so they must resort to drama farmers that are engaging with ideas. Like, it's just so fucked up, man. It makes me very sad. Thousands of Israeli civilians die. Tens of thousands of Palestinians die over the course of the past fucking 4 weeks. And what do some of these puppet master sociopaths engage in? How can we fucking drive a rift in my Fossabot? The fuck? Is this a joke? I can't tell if this is also another thing. It's crazy. You want to know how fucking mentally ill these people are? You want to know? I'll tell you how mentally ill these people are. Some fucking freak literally made a website saying Hasanabi, that I'm a supporter of Hamas. Put me and Frogan and Hinkledink himself on the fucking website. They unironically made a website, dude. You want to know how fucking mentally ill this shit is? I don't talk about it because you can't deal with it. You can't really do anything about cyber stalkers. There's no way to do anything. Okay?
Damn, this guy's good.